to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He is a security mentalist from hacking minds to hacking system, no other than Mr. Gary Chan.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here.
Welcome on Book 101, Mr. Gary. And can you please introduce me more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. Well, my name is Gary Chan, and I am a security specialist. And on top of that, I'm also a magician. So I've been performing magic for 25 years. And I combine the two and I create security themed magic shows. So that's a ton of fun for folks. And I love teaching people about security through magic.
Through magic. I like that. Mr. Gary, magic is everywhere. So today let's talk about the power of hidden influence. When you think of hidden influence, how do you define it in the context of everyday life or leadership?
Sure. Hidden influence is just the things that happen around us that we may not really notice that really impact what we do. So, marketing experts, for example, will take advantage of that. If you go to a grocery market, you can just walk down the aisle, and as an adult, if you walk down the cereal aisle, you're going to see certain types of cereals, probably the healthier cereals, for example, at eye level, and if you're a child, you're probably going to see the less healthy ones that are going to be sort of because they're lower, right? And the children are shorter. And so marketers really take advantage of these sorts of things. And if you don't really understand that they're taking advantage of it, then then you probably are affected and you don't realize that you are at all. And so there are a ton of examples of that all over the place, and people say things like, "Hey, there's no clocks on the walls of casinos because they don't want you to know what time it is," right? So just little subtle things like that. They're all around us all the time, and that's what subtle influence. The power of hidden influence is what I refer to it as.
Mr. Gary, can you share an early experience where you recognized the power of hidden influence at work?
Oh, well, I mean, just even the little things, right? Like whether or not your boss is in the room, that really impacts the way that you talk with other people on the team. And so that's a very powerful thing, right? So if you know that the boss likes a certain thing, you're more likely to behave in a certain way because your boss is just sitting there. And so something as simple as that, you can decide if you're the boss whether you want to join a meeting or not. And I will oftentimes choose to not go into a meeting if I, for example, really want people to be brainstorming, because otherwise they might be deferring to me, for example, if I'm the boss in that situation. There's lots of examples from the workplace like that, and then also little other things, whether you're talking about DEI initiatives or if you have a particular person who has a reputation for being, say, belligerent, you're also going to get very, very different outcomes from that meeting, just simply by the people that are in the room. And if you want something that is not based on people, as the example, you can look at the room itself. And if it's a very uncomfortable room, for example, if it's too hot in the room, or if the sun is in somebody's eyes, then that person is going to be uncomfortable. They're probably going to want to leave the room. And depending on their personality, they could be more belligerent because they're uncomfortable, or more likely, if they're in a corporate world, they're probably going to be actually just more agreeable because they just want to agree so they can leave. So you can really change the outcomes of things by doing really, really subtle things like that. Just where you put a chair relative to the sunlight in the room.
Can you share a early experience where you recognize the power hidden influence in your whole being?
So you mean like in my personal life?
Yes, in your personal life after the work. So let's talk about your personal life.
Sure. So I would say if something is, I'm trying to think, if something's fun, obviously, I'm going to be much more likely to want to play with it and things like that. So, um, hmm, sorry, let me.
No worries at all.
Yeah, let me think of a better example. Um, So I would say, for example, if I'm hungry or not hungry,
Yes.
that could definitely influence what it is that I am willing to do at that moment in time. For example, if somebody asked me to do the chores, right? So if my wife feeds me a good dinner, I'm more likely to agree to do the chores afterwards. Very simple example right there.
A good example indeed. And let's talk about the psychology and human behavior. How does subconscious bias play into hidden influence?
Subconscious behavior. So, for example, anchoring is a very strong one. So, for example, if let's say that you wanted to buy a used car from someone, and let's say that um, you don't really know the prices of cars. So then you see an ad for some other random car and it happens to be $10,000, then you're more likely to make an offer for the car that you want, which is completely unrelated to this car, closer to $10,000. But let's say that you saw an ad for a very expensive car just beforehand for, say, $100,000, then you might make an offer for the car that you want to buy for $100,000. So anchoring is an example of a bias that we all have that is actually incredibly powerful.
What role does emotional intelligence have in recognizing and using hidden influence?
I think emotional intelligence is both how you can be very good at using hidden influence and also how you can be very good at defending against hidden influence. So, if you understand the different types of cognitive biases and all sorts of other things too, but there's probably, if you look up on Wikipedia, there are probably dozens or there are dozens of different cognitive biases. And if you understand what they are and you're able to recognize them, um, then you're much more likely to be able to either weaponize it, in other words, use it against other people, or be able to defend against it. And the emotional intelligence of of the person basically determines how well they can do that because a lot of these biases they basically play on emotions, right? So if you have the halo effect, for example, which might be something like, let's say you happen to find $10 on the ground, right? Completely unrelated to anything else that you're doing in the day. But if that's the first thing that happened to you in the morning, you might be very happy. And then you might perceive the things that happen to you throughout the day in a more positive light simply because of the halo effect, because this very positive thing happened to you first thing in the morning, even though it had absolutely nothing to do with everything that happened later. But if you have the emotional intelligence to understand it, then maybe you can enjoy that $10, but then also look at each situation independently and say, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And be able to evaluate it and make better decisions in each of those cases.
Let's talk about the hidden influence in leadership and teams, Mr. Gary. What are some examples of hidden influence in organizational culture?
I would say the one of the biggest ones really is going to be your structure, your org structure itself, and how you divvy it up. So, if at the most senior level you have a particular department, whether it's HR, legal, or whatever, that gives you a sense of what leadership considers to be very important. Because let's say that your legal team has only 2 people in it, and your HR team has 1,000 people in it. I'm just making up numbers. That doesn't, but they both have a leader that reports to the same manager. Well, all of a sudden in those meetings, the 1,000 people that are in the HR and the 2 people that are in legal have almost an equivalent say, right? Because you've got one manager and talking and representing each of the 2 departments. And so I would say organizational structure is one that has an incredibly large impact that I think is fairly hidden because people don't always think about, how the structure might affect things. And then, of course, any processes that are built in into the organization greatly impact things, right? So if you do annual reviews versus quarterly reviews, then people could be longer term thinkers or shorter term thinkers. And if you never do any reviews, then that also might influence the culture as well. So your processes also affect quite a lot. And then, of course, you've also got different types of technology. And if you're a very technology driven organization and you have particular types of um, and you have particular types of workflows built into that technology, that also forces certain types of behaviors that people will learn over time and just simply incorporate into whatever they do. And no one actually taught them, they just sort of do it.
Mr. Gary, what strategies help uncover and empower those quiet influencers in a group?
So I would say everybody should use the strengths that they have. And if you're quiet, then pay real attention to what it is that each person in the room cares about. Think about it from their perspective. And then, usually, quiet people, when they do speak, people all listen, right? Everybody knows who in the room talks more and who talks less. And so, if you use your powers of observation to really think through what each person in the room might think based on whatever it is that you are wanting to say, and you're able to articulate it in a way that they comprehend and can appreciate, then that's incredibly powerful. For the quiet people, I would say just be observant, think about how each person in the room will respond to whatever it is you want to say, and then uh, use the platform. Go ahead and say it because people will be listening.
Definitely. For sure. And let's talk about the safety and marketing. How do brands use hidden influence to shape consumer behavior without people realizing it?
So this is purely conjecture, but I'm pretty sure it's true. But a lot of times it's going to come out, say, with reviewers, and nowadays a lot of it being through influencers, right? So if they're able to send products, especially if they're cheaper products, to influencers, oftentimes they'll send it for free. And those influencers know that if they give good reviews in general to people who send products to them, then or companies rather that send products to them, then they know that they're more likely to get them, right? So in other words, if you're an influencer who's always saying negative things about whatever product you get, then those companies, they're not going to send it to you. So it's actually mutually beneficial, and all influencers understand this, that they get this product for free, and even though nobody told them to say nice things about it, they're probably going to say nice things about it or not say anything at all. And then using that platform that those influencers have, they can influence the behaviors of others because people look up to them, right? By the definition of influencers. So I think that a lot of these brands will use reviewers, and also influencers uh, in these ways in order to get people on board with their product. And that's a way of influence.
Mr. Gary, ethics and responsibility. What is the ethical line between healthy influence and manipulation?
I think it really depends upon your intent. Unfortunately, your intent is generally not knowable other than by you. But I would say that is pretty much the differentiator. And in the absence of that, we have the legal frameworks to say these things are illegal, these things are not. But in general, I would say, unfortunately, it really depends upon the intent. And so, if you're in a repeat game, if you're using game theory language, for example, like if it's somebody that you see on a regular basis, and in general you get to know them and you get to know that they are a good person or a bad person, then you can sort of extrapolate from there. And if they're a good person, that hopefully they're using these skills for good. Um, and that's why I actually think this power of hidden influence, why I've turned it into a magic show, is because it's entertainment, and people in general like entertainment, and so it's a very positive thing in general, for that particular reason. So that's why I kind of use a lot of these things in that, through entertainment rather than through other means.
Mr. Gary, as a security mentalist, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Well, I think my short term goal, personally, is just to have fun. Actually, that's both the short and the long term goal. But in terms of business, so to speak, it's really just to share my love of security and magic with the world. Because I think that a lot of people don't really understand how they're manipulated on a day to day basis, and showing that in a very fun way teaches people this, that there are things out there that they don't know about that really do impact them on a day-to-day basis, and that might not be good for them. So as part of what I do, I usually tend to highlight a lot of security issues, so things that if you knew about them you actually wouldn't want them to happen, but then this opens your eyes to that, so that you can identify them when that does happen. So that's my short and long-term goal. It's just general more awareness for everybody of security things.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Gary, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Oh, I would just say read. It's a ton of fun learning about all of these things. The every day people are being very innovative. Bad guys are very innovative. So if you could appreciate something, even though it's unethical, so you don't actually do the bad things yourself, but you learn from it and you study it, you read the articles, you read books, whatever they may be, then I think that really that's really how you can improve in this area, right? Just understanding all the different ways in which you can be tricked.
Thank you for that advice, Mr. Gary. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Sure. Well, I really liked this book. It's called How to Cheat at Everything by Simon Lovell. I read it quite a long time ago, over a decade ago. I don't remember exactly when, but it just talks about a lot of different cons and different tricks that people can have. So like bar bets, for example. So these are all very fun things, right? So you might lose a bet, or if you do these things that are in here, but they're all intended to be for fun. But it's a way of learning, right? So if you understand that the world isn't always what you think that it is, then that allows you to protect yourself a lot better. And that's in my opinion, that's the whole point of this book, because this book goes through like probably about 100 different things that happen, whether it is at a bar or whether it is someone at the casino who's trying to cheat, or whether it's at a carnival where the games themselves are rigged. You're learning about different things that are done in the real world that are unfair, and essentially that cheat you.
Well, thank you for that recommended book, Mr. Gary. And let's talk about the personal growth and application. How can someone identify the hidden influencers in their own life or career?
Well, wow, that's a tough one. I would say just being just being self-aware. So you talked a little bit about the emotional intelligence and having an awareness of people's emotions, right? So as you're talking with people, understand that as they're interacting with you, how the way they interact with you affects your ability to think. Right. So if you get into a room with somebody and you just have incredibly clouded judgment, then after the meeting with them, just sit down and think about, well, why was that? Was it because that person did something? Was it because that person represents something? For example, like if they're your boss, um, was it because of a prior behavior that person has? Was it because um, Was it because they spoke very quickly? Was it because they were carrying something? Was it the way they dressed? What was it about it that caused you to not be able to think as clearly? And then conversely, of course, if you can think very clearly when you're with somebody, right, when you're in a very safe environment, well, what made it safe? What did that person do? Did they speak slower? Did they ask questions? Did they try to understand you? Is that what were the things that happened? So just having that awareness of the other people around you, and then of course you can extrapolate that to things as well, right? So we talked a little bit at the beginning about when you go grocery shopping and where the things are located, and you can think about how if things were a little bit different, would you have made a different decision? And so just thinking about that, and then you can do that ad infinitum, because there are so many things in this world that you could look at, but that would be I a way of going about it.
Yes, indeed. And Mr. Gary, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love letters in third season, and my movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Gary, what practices help strengthen positive influence in a way that feels authentic?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Could you say it again?
What practices help in strengthen positive influence in a way that feel authentic?
I would say going to bed every night and just thinking about all the good things that have happened to you that day is a great way to end the day.
Definitely be grateful, people, and stop complaining. And if you could leave listeners with one takeaway about the power of hidden influence, what would it be?
Just be aware that it's around us everywhere. And if you care to learn a little bit about it, go read.
Yes, read, 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 people. Mr. Gary Chan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Oh, sure. You can check out my website, gschan2000.com. Or you can just look me up, Gary Chan, Security Mentalist, and you can just watch some fun videos on my website.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Gary Chan because if you support him for sure, more and more empowering videos to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Gary, thank you so much for your time.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.